Welcome to the Teaching Science Podcast.
These episodes are recorded on Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern in our virtual Teachers Lounge.
If you would like to join us on a Monday to chat about a topic related to science education, go to the calendar in our show description to get the link for the week.
You can listen to the recorded discussions as a podcast from any major podcast provider or on the Superheroes of Science YouTube channel. So today, let's start there. Let's go into what is STEM? What does STEM look like in a classroom?
Okay.
What do you think?
I think it looks like a lot of different things, but I think if my idea of a STEM classroom, there's a lot. It's not quiet. There's going to be a lot of talking going on amongst the kids and a lot of interaction with teacher and kids. I think there's a lot of hands-on. So I'm not sure. I mean, I realize technology is a big piece in there, but I don't think it necessarily has to be a primary piece. Because
it has to be a piece all the time.
What?
Or at all.
Right.
That's one of the biggest mistakes I think that we make as teachers when we start talking about STEM is we think, okay, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, we think that we have to incorporate all four of those into a lesson. Otherwise, it's not STEM. And that's bull. Right. It's not true. Right. That's a misconception. If you're incorporating a couple of these, then you're doing STEM content. Mm-hmm. And so I could see doing next 9 weeks, no technology whatsoever, and still teaching STEM classes, content every day.
Yeah, that was a point that I was getting ready to bring up because I was I forget some online conference that I attended. There was a lady who talked about how STEM, like the technology piece in STEM, does not have to mean a computer or an iPad or whatever, because technology is any tool that you use to make your job easier. So for kindergarten, it might be Unifix cubes because that's how we're going to measure this or that or the other, right?
That is defined. I agree. That's defined. A technology is defined as that. Just like, I mean, a pencil's considered technology, but I think when we're talking STEM, I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I don't think using a computer is teaching technology.
Right. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Regardless of what you're using, it's not necessarily teaching technology. Just the one of the bit, I did this all the time early on. I'd be like, oh, I'm doing STEM. I'm including math because we had some calculations. I didn't teach them math for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't do it justice. I was doing it lip service, just like everybody else for a long time. And so it's all these things are considered a technology, but I think when we come to STEM, that doesn't have any. I don't think that comes into play myself because we're not teaching about it. That's why for kindergarten it wouldn't work but for older elementary, it's why I love the cloud protocol from Globe, the Globe Observer app, and AIM. You've seen that where we use the clipboard clinometers, and
the cloud.
No, tree height. Sorry, tree height. Sorry, the tree height. We use clipboard clinometers to get the angle, and then we do it with a phone to show what the phone's doing. We're demystifying technology. We're showing how to use technology. I could see a Excel being great for older grades. I mean, Sunny was making PowerPoints at second grade.
Yeah.
And that's something you can't do. I can't draw those things that I could put on a PowerPoint.
Right.
So I think that would be a technology showing how to use that.
Right. But I still have to argue with you that from a primary early childhood point of view, I mean, yes, I'm going to show them the actual laptop or the computer and how that plays into or falls into place and how that all works, right? But realistically, in the beginning of the kindergarten year, I am not going to give them their Chromebook and be like, we're going to do a PowerPoint on, you know what I mean? Like,
no, and I wouldn't expect it's not developmentally appropriate, especially for your audience. Right. That's not developmentally appropriate. So understand when to do things developmentally. I mean, what I say, you have to put it in that context still.
Right.
But I think, go ahead.
By explaining to the kids, like, I need to I need to measure this. I need to measure this plant. Like, how am I going to do that? Like, and then
Now you got me. Okay.
Yeah.
right. So I'm not going to be like, here, kids, we're going to use Unifix cubes, but but it's kind of and then they see how you do that process, and then you carry it over to, well, take a look at this. We used Unifix cubes, but just might use centimeters or then, oh, well, we can log the data into the computer, like then it just kind of builds on each other. But I think, you kind of have to broaden your view of technology before you can, and then build the foundation
Yes.
with some of those ideas and some of those, problem solving kind of ways.
When
And
you
then,
said Unifix cubes, I was still inside the box. I did not see where you were going with it, and I cut you off too early on that one. My
Yeah.
bad.
That's
It happened once. And
Did it though?
no, I
Only
wasn't really
once.
bad. No. Oh, that's not what you meant.
No.
But yeah, I agree 100%. In that case, it is a technology. It's a technology. It's a tool of measurement. It's a tool of measurement, but they're figuring out the technology as far as how it works, because technology is nothing, in my opinion, a tools that help us do things in a more, I wouldn't say modern way. I realize that's not how Webster's not going to define this, or his ghost, or whoever does it. But I mean, it is what it is.
yeah, but then I think then this naturally falls into place if you let the kids choose their tool that they're going to use to measure the thing, whatever it is, the plant or whatever, right? So this table chooses Unifix cubes. Well, this table over here chooses, I'm trying to think, Legos. Okay,
Yeah.
and then you're like, well, when they measure the plant, it was 10 Unifix or 10 tall, and when you measured the plant, it was 49 tall. Like, why? How can that be? And then, but it's the same plant. So anyway, then they get to thinking about, well, we have to have a consistent unit of measurement in order for it to make sense across. Why can't scientists use, one guy uses Unifix cubes and one guy uses, well, we kind of do that, but anyway, but one guy uses Legos, and then you're like, and then the data is not consistent. So why? And so getting them to think about, well, we need to all measure with the same thing, so it's fair, and we can really well, not necessarily fair, but that we can easily compare the data. So
Yeah. Well, in some cases, fair would fit, but yeah, in most cases, it's being able to compare.
Yeah.
No, and I like that. And I like that every example you're mentioning, kids are doing things.
Mhm.
I think for STEM instruction, kids should be doing things.
Mhm.
You have them answering word problems. You're not, it's just, I just don't see it fitting into STEM. Well, I expect if I was an administrator and I'm walking in,
Mhm.
you're like, I have a STEM lesson I'm going to do with the students. I'm like, cool, I want to see that. I mean, heck, I'm not an administrator. If someone tells me that, I want to see it. And, but I go in and I sit down and I don't see these kids up and moving and collaborating and talking. In my opinion, they're not. I'm like, okay, they're not really doing STEM in here. This teacher doesn't have an idea. And
Right.
it might be a little harsh to say, but that's kind of what I'll be thinking.
So this idea of having the kids interacting and moving around, and it is sort of fixed into the idea to a STEM mindset.
With at least one of the 4 subjects integrated. I think you have to have or at least 2 of the 4 subjects.
Okay. I was confused. I don't know about
sorry.
one. Yeah.
With at least 2 of the 4
4.
subjects tied in. And so if I'm doing a math and using like math, or if I'm doing my literacy unit, but okay, let's talk about one of them though. If you're doing a literacy unit and you're pulling in science, aren't you doing STEM still at that point? Because you're integrating subjects, but is it STEM since it's only one? Oh, long pause. Wait, same.
I don't know that it has to be that has to fit in that big of a box, or that small of a box, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because
So-
I would say yes. It depends on it depends on how they're approaching the science. If they're reading a guided reading book and they're looking at pictures, only looking at pictures in the guided reading book of a dinosaur or whatever it is then no. But if there is something hands-on where they have to problem solve and do some communication amongst at least one other person, either a small group or another person, then I would consider it more according to my definition, that would be more STEM.
But so are we still, does it have to be integrated, more than one subject integrated?
You mean like science, math, and literacy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I'm looking at it from a primary perspective.
Well, but that's all right. I mean, if I'm doing science today, then tomorrow, all right. So we're confined to a single lesson when we're talking about this, though, right? Because if I'm doing science today and tomorrow's math lesson builds on that today's science, then that is STEM because they go together. But I think it has to be integrated with, I want to say it has to be integrated with something in order to be STEM. I think there has to be some sort of integration, whether that is in a unit or in a lesson or in multiple lessons that are connecting back. Because we could do like a STEM unit and it would be doing one lesson at a time, but hitting different areas. And you don't ever have to hit all of them. You don't have to do a science and engineering and math. You don't have to do that's bull.
Yeah.
But so where are we then? Where are we?
So let me ask you this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
What I'm hearing is a STEM lesson. So, Amy, you've had a couple of ideas of like single lessons where they've been interactive and maybe they've included literacy and maybe they've included some type of technology and science. But then on the other side, or maybe there's a broad spectrum where we could have a STEM unit where we maybe have different lessons each day, but because over the course of several lessons, they're including the science and math and potentially technology, maybe literacy. So that just seems like something. It seems like we're talking about two or more different things. But that with STEM as a unifying theme.
Yeah.
So let me throw this guy on the table then. So you know how I run my makerspace, right?
Yeah.
For the kids during playtime. To me, for primary kindergarten, that is STEM. They are building things out of nothing. They are trying to. They've got an idea in their head. They may not write it down first, but they've got an idea in their head. They're creating something that's most of the time it was a free exploration. So I didn't say today you're going to build a marble run. Like it was more. They chose it, whatever it was. They built it. They had to take it apart. They had to They had to fix things because it didn't work the way they wanted it to, until they had a finished product that they were happy with. So, and then naturally they would, just because it was a natural thing for kids to do, they would come up and they would share it with someone, whether it was a kid, it would be me, the cadet teacher, and they would be like, look what I made. And this bends this way. And I would, the questions that I would ask would be like, oh, what are you going to use that for? Like, what's the purpose? Or kind of getting them to explain, like, how did you do that? Like, how did you make that bend that way or whatever? So since that's not integrating anything, that's just engineering.
It's just engineering.
You would not consider that STEM?
Dang.
Because I do. Because there's a
lot
going on
with my definition then, because I think it's an aspect of STEM. It's definitely the engineering.
Well, how is it different than what we had just said, like literacy and science being STEM? Where this to me seems like a form of literacy, and I don't know this, but I'm thinking with presenting, like oral presentation, or describing, using your words to describe what you've done. I know it's not a written, so I don't know if that counts as literacy. I don't know.
Well, yeah, absolutely does. We have oral language standards in our kindergarten, Indiana state standards. We have some oral ones.
So to me, that sounds comparable with an engineering activity like a makerspace, paired with an explanation of or a share out of some kind.
Yes, to me it totally is, and what I love about that is that it's all kid driven. They are the ones that are excited about it. They are the ones that pick the materials. I just provide the recycled things, and just put them in the tub. I provide the scissors and glue and, those kinds of things that they want. If they need tape, they ask for it. It's there, like I provide them extra materials that they may want. I've had kids ask for yarn, rubber band, like different things. And I might even ask them, like, what are you going to use this for? And then if they can, when they give a good explanation, then I'm like, absolutely. How many rubber bands do you need? 4? Okay. Here you go. So to me, that's all part of the planning process. Could it be fined? What do you call that? Fine or streamlined a little bit better? Yes. So because it's playtime, it's more open-ended, but could I put some more parameters on it where they have to be a little more by the book, or they have to give me specific steps of what they're going to do? I could, but will that, to me, that's in the situation that I have, that's going to stifle whatever creativity they have. Because then now they're like, well, I want a rubber bands, but like she's going to ask me 400 questions on why I want to, or what I'm saying? Like I want them to, well, then they try the rubber band and it doesn't work. Then they're coming back for, well, the rubber band didn't work. What are you going to do now? So I think I want to try a X, Y, or Z, so I don't want to stifle them. Like, so, but I'm a little more free when it comes to that stuff than some other teachers that I've worked with. So I might be completely off the mark, but that's just where I come from.
But I don't think you are, because I mean,
Yeah.
it seems right to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And
it just seems
it
like
but it is
the exact kind
just engineering.
but it's engineering, just like science, is part of that STEM acronym. So
Yeah.
if we're saying, a science paired with a literacy, and we're going to call that a STEM.
So we're sticking with that. Are we justifying our definition by saying this is oral literacy, or is this legit?
Well,
I think it's legit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if
And-
we were justifying that in order to keep the definition saying it's integrated. But I didn't know if we're making our definition fit.
So what would the other side of, let's be somebody that would say absolutely not. This is not at all a STEM. Like what would that?
And I can guarantee there's math involved in our makerspace because the kids are measuring. They may not use the appropriate tools. That's my job to step in and say, it might make it easier if we use Unifix cubes or whatever to measure this side, and then you can measure it here, and then when you cut it, it won't be too big, too small, whatever.
Yeah.
But I have seen it naturally happen. They're measuring things unconventionally, but they do. And I think that's a big math standard for kindergarten.
And to that end, Amy, even if they're not formally, like you say, using the Unifix cubes, there has got to be, just by the nature of it, some estimation happening.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And that's definitely math.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So I'm not sure how we're defining that, but I think you have to be willing to look at STEM through a new lens, so you got to look at it from all different perspectives, because there's so much embedded in it. If you're doing it right, to me, if you're doing it right, quote unquote, right, then there's so much embedded in there that you would spend all day picking it apart. Well, look, he just used technology to do that. Oh, he just used science to do that. Oh, you did engineering to do that. Like, you can just pick it apart all day long. But that's just my view.
I'm having trouble coming up with a definite, like, well, no, that's not a STEM because, like, I'm having trouble finding an argument.
But we've all been on, I know we've been on these committees that state at level and larger that's decided what STEM is.
Yeah.
But I guess where I'm going with this, I think all their definitions are bull. I think it's all political things, because the three of us put together, we can't come up with a definition of STEM, can we? Of STEM instruction.
Not one that we agree on, because we all look at it differently. And I think that's fine. I think it's fine.
Well, I agree.
Yeah. It almost seems like it would defeat the purpose of the STEM, like
philosophy. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Philosophy to have a formal definition for what it is just seems a little
But I think that's it. But that overlaps the biggest problem in education is politicians. They require, I know, I said it, but they require formal everything, formal definition, formal testing, formal. And so, how do we justify what we're doing as quality instruction if it doesn't fit their definition?
I think we look carefully at those process standards. I know as a Indiana teacher, I know it killed me, but our kindergarten team had to look at all of the standards and pick out the essential standards, as if we haven't done that 400 million times before. But the new administrator, new essential standards, we gotta look at them again. So which was fine because I know they'd been updated, and I was kind of like, like a couple times. I was a little surprised a couple had been changed. I didn't realize it, but glazed right over the process standards when it came to math. So to me, I don't think they're in there just because. I think they're in there for a reason. And some of those process standards are just as valuable as a foundation as some of the nitpicky ones, like can they count to X, Y, or Z? Do they have one responded? Like those kind of things. So I think if we looked at the process standards for science and math, I think that would be, and even I don't think for language arts, but science and math, I think that would be a good place to start, because those process standards are kind of broad. They're a little more broad, but they're really valuable to
There's more action in them.
Well, it seems
so it does fit better.
The mode for carrying out a lot of those, that if you're incorporating those process standards to teach those standards, the content standards, that's their idea for the ideal way for teaching those content standards.
Right. Yeah.
And
I think if those are not, I don't think they should be glazed over, but that's just me.
Well, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
Seems to me a lot of justification I did came out of those process standards now that you mention it.
Some of your what?
A lot of justification in order to do different lessons and stuff came from those process standards. I want to do this lesson and I'm teaching. So, I think a lot of my justification came from those. So that works for me. Well, I think it's interesting. It's really hard to put a name on some of these things. We might have to come back to this and break down some of the formal stuff, or we might leave it at that. But one thing I do like we all agreed on is the active learning.
Mm-hmm.
They're all active learning. They're all doing things, and that if it's with or under the STEM umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll call it a day for this one. Thanks for hanging out with us in our virtual lounge.
Please like, download, and subscribe, and share the love.
Oh, I was going to say share the love.
Find us on Facebook,
Twitter, YouTube,
and follow us everywhere.
Just not in a creeper way.